an impossible question for you.
Okay.
Absent of a pandemic, is there some type of progression as you look back over the 200 years where you could sort of like, there's a trajectory where you could perhaps, and I know as a historian, this is not your job, but where you could perhaps get a sense of what the trajectory was, to the extent that there was, has the pandemic, it's changed the dynamic right now, at least as of now, in terms of labor, power in this country, and who knows if it's going to be durable. There's some who are arguing that it will. Is the pandemic going to fundamentally alter that trajectory?
Well, you quite rightly, it's an impossible question, but I won't dodge it. I mean, I think the answer is yes. Of course, we have to see. I mean, I argue in the book really stops in 2010. It stops with the turn to austerity in 2010. That actually, given the depths of the crisis in 2008, that it looked like it could be a turning point, a new age of American capitalism. But instead, in terms of the economics, it didn't happen at all. Actually, the Obama administration very competently, put that capitalism that existed since the 1980s back together. And that's the economy we really still had going into the pandemic. With that said, politics and the kind of sensibility around, is the economy doing well or not, that's really shifted over the last 10 years. So I think that kind of neoliberal age has fractured. I think Trump especially contributed towards fracturing it by turning to economic policies, some that were right out of the Reagan playbook, like tax cuts, but others, trade, are very, anathema to typical conservative, or even, the kind of 1990s high tide of trade liberalization. So I think even before the pandemic, it's not clear what, right? But it's clear that things are breaking up. It's clear, I think, to most people who are, even remotely, wise about these issues. The levels of inequality in the economy are just not sustainable. They're not sustainable economically. They're not sustainable for our politics, or they're not sustainable socially. So I think even before the pandemic, the mood was very much that something's got to give here. And the pandemic so far, we've seen both in terms of the fiscal side of realizing that the government has much more financing capacity, to do the things that we need to be done than we had realized before, and then the labor side too, where there's arguably kind of like a strike wave, right? Like a general strike, much like we saw coming out of World War II. I think a very similar episode. And we'll see how much leverage, working people can get on the economy coming out of that. But I think things are changing, and we'll see what happens. But very likely we're entering into an age of capitalism with very different qualities.
Jonathan Levy, professor of history at the University of Chicago. The book is Ages of American Capitalism, A History of the United States. We'll put a link to that at majority.fm and in the podcast and YouTube description. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm off camera, but appreciate it.
Great.